Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and tonight we have a lot of news to cover regarding All Elite Wrestling and WWE. But before we get to that, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. The first big news that we're going to talk about recently came up in an interview with Wrestling Inc. And that was with Cody Rhodes saying that AEW is going to start looking at stadiums for shows. Kind of big, little bit of a risk here in my opinion, but you know, in the interview Cody Rhodes does say, listen, we had about 43,000 sign up for the pre-sale, and you know, if you take ticket scalpers out and some of the trolls that he called them, and you know, if people are in groups trying to buy tickets, realistically it's like 30,000. And not everybody buys one ticket. So let's say everybody buys two. That's 60,000 seats that could be filled. Do you think this is a little bit too big for them to chew? Or do you think this is actually at least worth looking into right now?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, in my opinion, I think it's a little early. I mean, I definitely think that it was encouraging to see that, you know, obviously Double or Nothing was able to sell out in 4 minutes. I think it's also encouraging they sold almost 12,000 tickets and there was 40,000 people waiting in the queue or more than that to purchase tickets. All of that is great, but the only reason I say it's a little early is because Double or Nothing hasn't happened yet, and we don't know what's going to happen going forward. But, I mean, like we keep saying with All Elite Wrestling, there is supposedly this TV deal. They do have some legitimate backing with the Khan family, so they're out there signing some of the top talent from around the world, whether it's Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, some of the bigger names within the independent scene. So Lucha Brothers, they're here to play. They're not here to kind of just sit back and become like this small wrestling company and let all of this pass them by. They're trying to capitalize on you know, the resurgence of professional wrestling, especially on the independent scene. So can they do it? I'm sure they can. I just think it's a little risky because we haven't seen Double or Nothing yet. But at the end of the day, go big or go home, I guess.
The other thing, too, that it kind of is interesting that they're going to look at other stadiums when they can just use the Jacksonville Jaguars stadium.
Yeah.
It makes more sense because, you know, the Cons are there. So what real extra investment is it to put on a show there as opposed to putting it on at, let's say, Yankee Stadium or Chase Field or the Ford Field in Detroit or any non-Jacksonville Jaguar stadium, TIAA Bank Park, our field. So to me, maybe this is kind of a hint that this Jacksonville show that is supposedly that is happening this summer, maybe they're saying that they might make this the fundraiser at a stadium. Mm-hmm. And even if they don't sell out the stadium, let's say they only do the lower bowl and the field, that's still a hell of a lot of tickets to sell.
Yep.
And, you know, there's not many non-WWE companies that have sold out stadiums. There's the Tokyo Dome in New Japan, but they only do that once a year. Ring of Honor, the closest they've ever gotten was MSG. You know, and there's independents that do small, like minor league baseball fields, but nowhere close to what WWE could do. I mean, not at all. They just sold 60,000 tickets or more for the Royal Rumble. They never do stadiums outside of WrestleMania until this year. And yes, the Saudi Arabia shows, but that's different.
Yeah.
But, you know, All Elite Wrestling, you know, let's not make this into Icarus where you're flying too close to the sun and your wings get melted and you know,
crash and burn. We don't want that to happen to the company.
No, we don't. We want this to, you know, take their time. And I know people are going to go in the comment section and say that, you know, they're strike while the iron's hot. Everybody, you know, if people want tickets for Double or Nothing, didn't get them, they'll go to wherever the show there is. And if it's a stadium, you know, they'll make a weekend out of it with Conrad and do a star cast again and all that. So
my only other comment would be that confidence has to be coming from somewhere, whether it's from the amount of people that were waiting in the queue, you know, analytics from ticket sales, whatever it may be, something is telling them that they will be able to sell out a stadium, or like you said, even if it's the lower part of a stadium, they wouldn't be wasting their time looking at that stuff if they didn't believe they weren't capable of doing it. So that confidence comes from somewhere, whether it was the ticket sales or the supposed TV deal that they're supposed to have kind of in the works. So I guess we'll see what happens down the road.
Yep, but the company that is still putting on a TV show each and every week, whether you like it or not, is WWE. Yep. And on Monday night, we had a very, very newsworthy show. Sure. We have the return of Roman Reigns. Great news to hear that he is in remission from leukemia. So, and of course, social media is buzzing all over with high praise, so awesome that he's in remission. And of course, you got those selected few that think that this was a work the whole time. And I've actually seen many people who have leukemia, have cancer, have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, actually go on social media and explain, like, you do not always lose your hair. You do not always lose weight. You do not look sick every time you have cancer. And it's great. Like, there's that support for Roman Reigns and the WWE as well. And just amazing, not only to see him in the ring saying that he's in remission, but actually do something physical in a segment on Raw.
That part I definitely wasn't expecting. I kind of got the sense that was where it was going to go when you saw, those guys come out and jump Ambrose. And I was shocked. But like you said, definitely encouraging to see Roman Reigns come out. I'm really happy he got the response he did because, I know wrestling fans are fickle. I just hoped that they wouldn't give him the usual Roman Reigns treatment. They were very respectful of him.
The Atlanta crowd was amazing.
Yeah, they praised it. Roman Reigns praised the crowd, the fans for the support. Made for a really good feel-good moment and a great moment on Monday Night Raw. So great open to the show, and it really carried on throughout the remainder of the show.
Another big part of Raw was how it ended.
Yep, and I love this.
We got a surprise, although people saw beforehand that Batista was in attendance and they figured he would be part of the Ric Flair celebration, but not in the way it ended up happening. Yeah. He attacks Ric Flair backstage, goes on the camera and says, "Do I have your attention, Triple H?" Huh? It was just an amazing, amazing angle. Yep. And I believe on the YouTube views, that segment had more views than Roman Reigns' announcement that he's in remission. Yeah. So a lot of people are talking about both, and it showed in the ratings as well. Yep. 3.1 million people viewed in the first hour, 2.9 in the second hour, 2.6 in the third hour. This is the number one show on cable Monday night, and this is the highest ratings that Raw has had in 2019 so far. And in my opinion, the best Raw in the last possibly 6 months.
Yeah, it was definitely a really good Raw. It was really good for one of the biggest reasons, obviously the star power. You had the announcement from Roman Reigns. I thought they used Batista really well, and it's crazy to see, when you look back to the last time Batista was feuding with Daniel Bryan and he was in the main event of WrestleMania, the way people had reacted to him winning the Royal Rumble, and now seeing him come back, and we saw when he was with Evolution that time, when he kind of you got the tease that him and Triple H might be facing each other at WrestleMania, just to see the way that in the position they put him in last night, putting him in a position where he could be successful, play the heel, feud with Triple H rather than feud with, at the time, somebody like Daniel Bryan, who was so over. I thought it was really well done. I definitely didn't see it coming. It made for a good surprise, and it made for great television.
I think also what made it even more of a surprise was the fact that earlier in the night, Becky Lynch is escorted out of the arena, handcuffed, arrested after attacking Ronda Rousey from the crowd. And everyone expected, and I even tweeted this out on our Twitter page at SCPB Podcast, that I thought she was going to come back in a pickup truck.
A lot of people thought that.
Very Austin-like, and crash the party that way. I actually liked this little bit of swerve because it was very unpredictable, and WWE for years has been criticized for being too predictable. Sure. And this was a great way to actually build two feuds for WrestleMania and keep the crowd engaged and get everybody talking on social media, which is what you want in the end. People are talking about this. They're going on YouTube to watch this. Absolutely great. And the fact that they were able to keep their ratings pretty well throughout the show. And yes, it goes out from hour to hour because people want to go to sleep. So that happens. But again, the number one show on cable television Monday night. So ratings don't matter.
I disagree.
They don't.
We've had this conversation before.
That just proves
ratings do matter, and losing a majority of your fan base at the third hour matters as well. But that happens every week on Raw, so it's expected.
Now, the question that I do have to ask, and this is also some big news in WWE and the wrestling community, is that Bruce Prichard was hired back to WWE to be the right-hand man for Vince McMahon on the creative team.
Yep.
And it looks like instantly he has made an effect. Now, according to Fightful.com, Bruce Prichard had his hand in a lot of this show. So the question is Bruce Prichard to thank for this amazing Raw?
Well, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. I think that some of the praise should go to him if he was heavily involved in this. You know, like you said, this was probably one of the better Raws in the past 6 months, if you want to say that, at least in recent memory. But the other thing you kind of have to point to is the amount of star power that was there. So you got the surprise of Becky Lynch. You didn't expect her to be on the show. You got the return of Roman Reigns and the big announcement, which was announced beforehand that he was going to be on the show. So you had to think that there was going to be a draw there as well. And like we said, we got the return of Batista. So there was a lot of star power going into this. That being said, everything else mostly from beginning to end was pretty well written. The thing with Ronda Rousey and her and Stephanie's face off, her putting the belt on the ground and just walking away, that adds a little, different twist to this whole storyline. One of the things that I would note is traditionally Stephanie and Triple H kind of play these heel roles, which is really played out because they've been stagnant and they've been in that role for so many years now. It almost seems like they're going to play these sympathetic type roles where Stephanie is going to make the announcement that we're going to get a triple threat match between Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte at WrestleMania, and it looks like Triple H is going to be the face against Batista, which is different from what they've normally done with them.
Right.
So praise where it's due. Bruce Prichard, if he was heavily involved in this, it was a very good Raw. The ratings were up, but you also have to take into consideration that there is a lot of star power on this event and on this Raw. I didn't even mention Ric Flair. That was another thing. So.
Ric Flair's 70th birthday party celebration. We saw
Shawn Michaels, Sting. So, naturally a fan of wrestling who watched when they were younger, maybe doesn't watch as much anymore. If they were to watch this edition of Raw, I think they'd be able to leave happy. But you have to give credit where credit's due. So you got to give Bruce Prichard some credit for this.
This was the spark that WWE needs to get the road to WrestleMania really going, because now we have the main event picture really in full gear now with Ronda, Becky, and I was actually surprised we didn't see Charlotte on this episode of Monday Night Raw. I was too. But I guess because SmackDown is in Charlotte, it's a little bit of a hike to get her from Atlanta to Charlotte without airfare. So maybe that's the reason why. Or if there was a house show where she was with the SmackDown roster, I'm not exactly sure why she wasn't there, but surprising that she wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And also probably the reason why they went more the Batista run instead of the Becky Lynch run in. But excellent, very well executed.
Sure.
Amazing. For the first time in a long, long time, I'm actually excited to see what happens next on Monday Night Raw.
For the first time in a long time, I watched Raw from beginning to end, and I didn't feel like it was a marathon or a chore. I actually enjoyed it. And just when you kind of thought you were going to get the more straightforward, Ric Flair type, happy birthday thing, you got the twist with Batista, and I thought it was a great way to kind of cliffhang the episode of Raw. So kudos to WWE producing a really good show, really compelling, and really good storytelling.
If they could continue this on a weekly basis, and we see All Elite Wrestling on television, do we start seeing more of a divide with wrestling fans that want to choose one or the other?
The hardest thing for WWE is going to be attracting some of the fans that have been disgruntled, because we know that there is a growing a percentage of their fan base that has been disgruntled with the product. So you're going to have to try and win them back. You're going to have to continue to produce weekly content that's compelling and pull them back from whatever other show or whatever other independent show or New Japan, whatever they're choosing to watch, whatever alternative they're watching rather than watching WWE. Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, you're going to have to convince them to come back to your programming. If they can do this on a weekly basis, they stand a good chance of doing that. The only problem is usually this is around the time where WWE does put a lot of effort into producing their shows because it is leading into WrestleMania, so they have no choice but to really write compelling stuff. If after WrestleMania they continue to do this going forward, okay, good, you're on the right path. But right now, everybody's excited about a lot of things in wrestling, whether it's AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, the interview we're going to have with Brian Pillman on Friday, which we just talked about. So
Yep.
That's another thing. Brian Pillman Jr. will be on the show with an exclusive interview, so get excited about that. But it is a fun time in the wrestling business, whether you like WWE or dislike WWE.
Yep. So very exciting to talk about All Elite Wrestling and WWE on a more positive note for a podcast for once. So let us know what you think about Monday night's episode of Raw. Was it the best Raw of 2019? One thing I do have to add before I hit the segue. Atlanta taught Lafayette how a crowd should be at Raw. That crowd was the hottest I've seen in a long, long time. They really put the hot in Hotlanta. Now, with that said, let us know in the comments what you thought of Monday Night Raw. What do you think about AEW having a stadium show? In the comments, also like, subscribe, share all over social media. We're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti, and thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.